Thanks for joining me today. My name's AJ and I'm the Candle Chef. Today I would like to share some tips and tricks back in the kitchen for some creative candles. Here's today's menu and candles I'll be making for you today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to get my latest content. And if you'd like to order any of my creations, you can do so either on thecandlechef.com or Etsy. Links are below. Or you can just message me on my Facebook for a custom order and I'll be happy to create something with you. Enjoy the video.
And I've been chillin', watching the ocean with you. Baby up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our cloudlands when people change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word.
Hello, I'm AJ, I'm the Candle Chef, and thank you for joining me today. If you went out to Etsy and you purchased the do-it-yourself kit, I want to thank you for your purchase. If you haven't gotten the do-it-yourself kit and you want to check it out, you can go to my Etsy page. The links are below. Alright, so let's get started. You have to bear with me. I had mouth surgery, so it's really hard for me to talk. But I'm going to try my best. I also have a Facebook page you can go out and you can like and follow, because I put a lot of updates on when my kits come out and my YouTube videos and all that comes out. The link's down below if you want to follow me on my Facebook as well. So let's get started with the contents of the kit. The reason why I chose the open crimp crust rather than the lattice crust is because you have limitless options on being creative as to how you fill this up. Yeah, you have so many more options you can do. This is a sugar cream pie. I marbled the wax and put real cinnamon on top. These are just examples of what you can do. This one I marbled the wax to make it look like melted cherry ice cream, and I put a couple brownies in there. I put a cherry in there. This one's a cinnamon bun, which smells freaking awesome. I absolutely love the cinnamon bun scent. But yeah, this is a cinnamon bun pie. I mean, you can get really creative with these. This is the one that you saw in the photo of the do-it-yourself kit. I really spent a lot of time on the crust making it look realistic, and I'm going to show you in this video how to make this crust look realistic. You can also make the ice cream look melted. You can really make the cherry stand out with the gel wax, with the coloring. I'm going to show you all that today. I'm going to give you 5 aluminum tins, and if you are going to start making candles, it'd be a good idea. It'd be a really good idea to get a lot of these. You can get them by the packs of 50 on Amazon. They're like $8-9. But yeah, I really like using these because I don't like to put fragrance and dye into the pouring pot. That way I don't have to clean it out all the time. I just put it in the aluminum tin. I put the dye and the wax in the aluminum tins. I'm going to give you an associated 1 ounce bottle of fragrance, which will be plenty because we're only going to do about 5 to 6% fragrance load in these pies, and I'll tell you why later. Why we're not doing more later. I'm going to give you about 7.5 ounces of gel wax. Alright, so I'm going to give you 27 ounces of the coconut soy wax. It's C6 wax. I'll show you how to heat it up, what the temperatures are going to be. I'm going to show you how to color it. I'm going to show you how to fragrance it. I'm going to show you all that stuff. Also, you're going to get 8 braided cotton wicks. I really like the braided cotton wicks for the pies. The ice cream, these are paraffin. I like to use paraffin. I did use a little bit of the soy wax just to give it an opaque white color, because 100% paraffin is a little translucent. So yeah, I'm going to give you the 4 of these for each one of the pies. I'm going to give you a half block of dye. This one is ruby red. This is what I use for my cherry. If you get blueberry, whatever, I'm going to give you dye accordingly. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to do some artistic touch-ups to this crust while my wax is heating up. You want to heat up both the C6 and also the gel wax at the same time. And it hurts to talk because of my surgery, but I'm going to try my best. Alright, so some safety tips and some pro tips on melting the wax. For the gel wax, the melting point is right around 275, and the flash point is right around 440. Here's all the information that you need for the gel wax and the C6. Now, the websites will recommend using a zinc wax or a zinc wick, but I use a braided cotton wick because most of the flame is going to be on either paraffin or the coconut soy wax. Here is, we'll take the heat gun and we'll lightly go over it. Now don't worry about like imperfections, little cracks, little spots or anything, because the dye will actually concentrate in those little spots, and I actually like that look. It kind of looks like a flaky crust when you do that, when you get the little cracks. So sometimes I'll even put cracks in the crust to make it look more authentic. And the pie crust that I give you will be scented with like vanilla, Grandma's Kitchen, cinnamon, it'll give off a really nice bakery smell. Saturating all the areas. You can even do the outsides. You take your heat gun and you lightly go around the edges. You don't want to put it on for too long because then it'll move the dye around and you'll get really light spots, and you don't want that. So all you're doing is you're just evening out the tone. And then on the crust, I use a little paraffin and a little soy wax and some additives. So it gives a really nice shine once you do the heat gun. Alright, so there you have your realistic looking crust. And we're ready to pour the coconut soy wax into the middle to get our base pie, our pie filling. Alright, so when you go out to the websites and find out some information on the gel wax, what it's going to tell you is you're going to want zinc core wicks, and you want to dip your wicks into the gel and let them dry before you before you pour the gel. Now, so the wicks that I gave you are a cotton wick. We're actually only using about 1.5 to 1.75 ounces of gel wax. Those tips are for, like, if you were to do a container candle and it was all gel wax, nothing but gel wax. You definitely want to use a zinc wax, a zinc core wick for an all gel candle. And you'll want to dip the wicks into the gel before you place the wicks, because they'll stay up. Gel wax, the melt point's 275, the flash point's 440, so you definitely want to keep it right around 280 to 290. You don't want it too hot. And when you're doing food candles and embeds, wax embeds, gel wax is a very, very high melting point wax. So if you pour it on too hot, your embeds will melt along with your crust, and everything else will melt and it won't look right. So I let it cool down to about 280, 285, maybe 5 degrees higher than the melting point. That way I don't burn off the fragrance. I don't melt the wax embeds. And then I also don't risk causing a fire on my stove or on the candle. All right, so I have a lot of my customers, they use these pies as decoration. Anytime somebody gets a food candle, your mentality is going to be different than doing a container candle, because we have all these uneven spots, like the crusts are on the outside, we have the wax embeds, we have the ice cream, they're all different levels. So when you burn it, it's not going to burn evenly. Food candles do not burn very well at all. So a lot of people actually use them for decoration and use the gel wax as the fragrance. You use the cold throw from the gel wax to get the scent rather than burning it. That's why I only use one wick for this one, because this one's more for decoration. When you do burn this, the melt pool is about 2 inches to 2.5 inches. So you'll want to break off, if you're doing this for yourself, you want to break off pieces of the outside and put them inside the melt pool as the candle burns. Also, when you burn gel wax, you never want to have the wick more than 1/4 of an inch. So you want to trim your wick every time you burn. Also on gel wax, you don't want to use essential oils or paraffin wax fragrance oils, because they will cause a fire in your gel wax. If you put more than 6% fragrance oil in your gel wax, it'll also catch on fire when somebody lights them. So definitely be careful of that. And stay right around 275, 280 with food candles. If you're dealing with container candles, like drink candles or something like that, you'll want a higher temperature. But with food candles, like pies, desserts, and stuff like that, you want to stay around 280, 285. I'm going to use red anyway. I like to keep these just in case I do make the same pie or same kind of pie. That way I can reuse the wax. I did not melt this all the way. It really doesn't matter on your filling wax, because it's not going to show at all. If you do like a half and half and you want to do a marbling, you might want to melt this all the way so you can get an even texture. But for mine, it's really not going to matter. The texture is not going to matter because I'm covering up with ice cream embeds and gel wax. So that's why I didn't melt mine all the way. When I do food candles, I tend to like the temperature to be right above the melting point anyway. So this is about the same temperature that I'm normally using for my food candles. A lot of the undesirable effects that you get for not heating your stuff up, not pouring it out at a certain temperature on container candles, a lot of those undesirable effects like frosting and pitting and uneven spots are actually desirable in food candles. So if you're actually familiar with the different effects like the frosting, and actually know how to get the frosting, and then know how to get the two tones, the pitting or the uneven edges, you can actually use those to your advantage when you're doing pies and desserts and stuff like that. It'll give a really nice effect. For example, this pie right here, I used some brownies. These are just paraffin wax, and I didn't put any additives in the paraffin wax on purpose, so I could actually purposely get the frosting that you get with paraffin wax without additives. And I got a really nice two-tone chocolate look on the brownies. I got a really light brown here. And this is actually frosting that you get that's undesirable in container candles, but it looks really nice and on a brownie. So, and then I also got some pitting and some uneven marks on this, and it actually looks pretty good on a brownie. It wouldn't look good in a container candle, but it looks very good on a brownie. So that's an example of purposely getting those undesirable effects in a container candle in a food candle. All right, so before this gets solid on me, I'm going to go ahead and pour this. Okay. I'm going to get my ruby red dye block. And the color of this one, for me, doesn't really matter. It's going to be pink to red. When you're doing dye, you want to start off light and then work your way up to dark, because you can always add more dye. If you get it too dark, you can't take away the color. So I'm going to use my skewers, my favorite tool. And I'll show you how to get the marbling effect here in a second. You can do it two ways. You can do it when it's on melted wax, and you can do it on solid wax. So I'll show you the melted wax way in just a second. Alright, I'm actually good with pink, and you can be creative, and actually sometimes mistakes actually turn out really good in food candles. So you can always fix things later with food candles, especially if you have a heat gun. So, alright. And I also want this a little bit lighter because I am going to show you guys the marbling effect. That's approximately 5.5 ounces. So when you're pouring into the tin, if you're not familiar with the ounces, you can use a scale and just measure out 5.5 ounces. And go right about, you don't have to be exact, go right about an inch down on the crust. That'll give you room to get your embeds on there and your gel wax. Alright, so we're gonna put our wicks in here. I'm actually gonna use 2 wicks instead of 1. The wick diameter, or the melt pool on these types of wicks, you'll want to do your own testing on wicks if you plan to do this often. But for these specific wicks that you get in the kit, the diameter is about 2 inches to 2.5 inches. So I mean, you can measure it out, but I kind of know where the melt pools end up. So I'm going to eyeball it. What you can do is you can measure about 1.5 inches this way, 1.5 inches this way, and then place your wicks right there. I'm going to show you the marbling real quick before we do that. What you want to do, you can do this method with dye blocks only. You can't do it with liquid dye, because liquid dye, as soon as you do the drops, it sinks to the bottom. If you do it with the dye blocks, the flakes are light enough, they stay at the top. So you want to get really, really thin flakes randomly around. And what will happen is they'll stay up at the top. So since they're at the top, we can actually manipulate them and move them around in little swirl like have you ever made a cheesecake and did like a marbling effect on a cheesecake? It's the same thing. You'll want to do it when it's a little bit warmer than this, because the dye will not want to melt. You can do it this way, and if it doesn't want to melt, you're going to have to use a heat gun. I don't like using the heat gun because it spreads it around too much and you don't get like the marbling effect. It might be fine. Nice. Alright, so that's the best way to marble on top of your food candle. And then the second best way is obviously with the heat gun. You put the flakes on top. You can do the heat gun when it's if you miss your window on the melted wax and it sets, you can actually still do the marbling with the heat gun. It's not as effective, but it still works. Alright, so I'll be back in just a second once this sets. Usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes for it to set hard enough for me to use for me to start on the ice cream and the wax embeds. You don't want to go You don't want to wait until it sets all the way, because then you won't be able to push the embeds into the wax. Alright, so it's been about 20-30 minutes. Looks like it's set on the top. It's still warm on the bottom. So it's still setting, in the process of setting. Which is a perfect time to put your embeds in. And I used a C6 because it's a really soft wax. And I like using soft waxes for the pie filling because you can put the wax embeds in and push them in, and they set really, really, really well. I'm actually going to put my ice cream on first. And I'm going to put 2 on this one since I have 2 wicks. And the paraffin and the soy actually slow down the burn. If you put the wick through the ice cream, it slows down the burn. Because these pies aren't very, very tall. And so they burn very quick. And the paraffin is a really high melting point wax. So it actually slows down the burn, and it burns longer. I use my heat gun and fix that. You don't want to put the heat gun right on the crust because the crust will melt into the pie. And you also don't want to put the heat gun directly on the embeds or the ice cream because you'll lose the texture. So we're going to let this set for about 45 minutes to an hour. Alright, so my gel wax is done. This is set up. So I'm going to go ahead and pour in my gel wax. The temperature of my gel wax is about 280. The best way I can tell that it's ready is if it looks like corn syrup. My temperature is right around 280. I'm letting it cool to right about 270, 275. Because I want it right above the melt point. I want it as cool as possible so it doesn't melt any of my stuff. And so I put 4% cherry fragrance in there, and I put about 6 or 7 flakes of the block dye. For gel wax, liquid dye is actually better than block dye, but if you put too much block dye in, it gets really cloudy. And actually, gel wax holds color a lot better than any other wax, so you don't need that much. So you only want to put a little bit in at a time until you get the right color. If you get it too light, your embeds won't stand out. If you get it too dark, it'll cover the embeds and you won't be able to see the embeds. So you want to get it right in the middle. And it's ready. So looks like a syrup. You don't want it runny. If it's runny, it means it's too hot. And what I try to do is I cover the cherries first, because the cherries look so good with the gel wax on them. Okay. And then you want to let this harden, and it peels right out of the, it peels right out of the aluminum tin. Okay. We're going to let that set just a couple minutes, and then we're ready to put the melted ice cream on there. So if you have any imperfections or touch-ups you want to do it now before you put the melted ice cream on. So I poured it just a little bit early. I like to have the melted ice cream right above the melting point. So what I did is I let it set, and then I'm going to use my heat gun to get some liquid on the top, and then yeah, I just need a little tiny bit for the ice cream. Make sure you have hot pads or something to pick up the aluminum with, because it's going to be hot after you use the heat gun. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to dribble it just a little tiny bit on the ice cream and make it look like it's running down. So, I mean, it is a pie after all, so if you put ice cream on a pie, hot pie, you get melted ice cream. Maybe a little too much, but we'll see. All right, and we're back, and it looks like it wasn't too much. So it looks like it came out perfect. I put just the right amount on this side, and I evened it out as symmetric. I got stuff on this side. I got
watching the ocean with you, baby, up with a slow motion crew, and we up in our cloudlands when people change, but not us, and we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun, could be soaked to the skin